Welcome Home Radio Podcast. Are you looking to buy or sell your home? Our team is here with answers to guide you through the buying and selling process. We encourage you to ask questions. Please comment on this show or visit us at welcomehomeradio.net for more information. Bringing real estate, lending, and education together in one place, and to help you make the right home decision for you and your family.
And welcome to Welcome Home Radio, where real estate lending and learning do come together. It is January 29th, and again, Happy New Year. We're here with the second rendition of Your Turn to Ask. We're going to be talking about some questions that are left at welcomehomeradio.net, answering those questions here live for you. So we want to try to get some information out there this year that's very important that you're asking, that you consider critical to you getting a real estate transaction done, whether buying, whether selling. We want to go over all of that. Guys, welcome back. It is January 29th. We do have the Super Bowl coming up soon, and college football is all done. I don't know what else I'm going to do after February 9th. I'm going to struggle.
College football's already done, and we're just ready for the basketball, March Madness.
Oh, well, that is true. March Madness is coming. Thank goodness for small things. Hey, we're going to get on some questions that have been asked. I'm really excited. I really enjoyed our last show with this, and so here going to kick us off real quick. Help me to explain to my hubby why sellers prefer 20% down to 5% down. Looking to buy a home at $600,000 in Northern Maryland in the next few months. Not a crazy market right now, but homes are only on the market a few days. There are usually multiple offers. Our realtor explained that most sellers will accept an offer with a 20% down conventional mortgage over a 5%. My husband insists this makes no sense, that sellers get their money either way. Help me to explain why this happens so I can get him to go forward with a 20% down. So what are your thoughts on that offer?
It makes sense, but I think the biggest thing is to say, what's the definition of earnest money, right? And when you're going to a seller saying, here's a contract, an offer to purchase your home, and for most all of us, let's always remind, this is the largest purchase most of us ever make. And when you take that offer to that seller, earnest means I'm sincere. So I do not know that seller. He does not know me. So if I offer 20% and Blair offers 5%, my earnest seems more sincere than your 5%. Is that an easy breakdown of it?
Well, and let's make it clear we're discussing two different things here. 20% down, I'm picturing 20% down, meaning they're going to put 20% down on their financing, not as earnest money.
And here's the other thing I have. What does it matter, and does it change just because the offer comes in and it states this is the mortgage? Can that mortgage change after that? No matter, once it's selected, does it have to stay with the 20% down? Or can it be changed, the mortgage program, to a 5%? Does it matter?
Theoretically, the contract has to be changed. The contract should be changed to reflect that change in the financing.
Okay. So why is a realtor telling them that 20% down is better than 5%? Is it just meaning that it's going to we think it's more advantageous to closing?
Well, and I can ask that from a lender standpoint. Is it easier for me to get a loan for somebody with 20% down than 5% down? And the answer is yes, it is easier.
It's easier?
It's easier because we have more buckets to put people in if they have 20% down versus 5%. In other words, with the bucket that you're going to put them in, if they have credit issues or if they have something that is an employment issue as far as their taxes are concerned, then sure enough, it's going to be easier for me as the lender to actually go back and get them alternative financing if they didn't fit in that first box with 20% down because of some of the other issues that show up when we're getting them approved.
You just, the more you're able to put down, the more attention you get to, well, I'm not burdening what I'm borrowing on this asset.
And you don't have the second underwriting requirement for mortgage insurance once you put down 20% as well. So there's not going to be a mortgage insurance requirement with 20% down. And even FHA with 20% down will give you a loan typically with 500 credit scores.
And let's make a comparison of, Blair. If I bring you an offer on the property you're selling and I have loan, which I have an approval, I can show you my approval letter, and Tom walks in with the same contract and he's offering cash, which one do you feel more secure with?
Well, sure. Cash.
Obviously the cash. Obviously the cash. But when I still come to the table with 20% as opposed to someone with 5%, you feel more secure that I'm a little more legit most of the time. That's the way I think most consumers feel.
So what you're telling me is the 5% offer needs to be $5,000 more than the 20% offer.
I don't know. It's all in the eye of the beholder, right?
It's still a selection process. Whether, I just can't believe that a realtor is explaining to sellers will accept that. That's a little outside their lines. Isn't that, Mr. Mortgage Educator?
What do you mean outside their lines? They're able to do anything because they got an exemption from licensing requirements. They can say anything they want.
A realtor can?
Yeah. Kind of scary. I know. I didn't mean to scare everybody. I just got
lost there. Blair, ask your question again to Tom.
It's a little outside the realtor's lines to be giving financial advice.
Oh, absolutely.
Well, when you say advice, that's a little bit different. Can I give it? Realtors are supposed to give advice and opinion. That is their requirement as somebody you've hired as your agent.
And we have a lot of them on this show, that's for sure. Opinions are free here. And
advice is free as well. So you got to consider the source, but realtors are not, it's not necessary. What is in their good judgment as to what is in their wheelhouse also is a requirement that they be educated in what they're talking about. If they talk about Schedule A, B, C, or D with a title, do they know that A is all and B is but and C is, these will be cleared before things get closed? If they know those things, they can talk about them because that's within the realm of what they should be knowledgeable about. Now, they're not experts, and they should probably make sure that that's a point of information, that they do not have a they do not have a mortgage license. But I'm seeing in my classrooms, I'll just tell you right now, nearly the majority, and this used to be 1 or 2 or 3 students, and now we're talking about at least maybe 50% of my classrooms are comprised of realtors. That's how many realtors I'm seeing in our classrooms that want to do and get their mortgage license so they can do both aspects of the transaction.
They can do both aspects?
Yeah, as long as it's disclosed, and as long as it's okay with the investor, and as long as it's okay with their broker.
Stay in your lane.
Wow.
Listen to Jeff. He's so sage with that new haircut and everything.
Wow. Have we explained this answer?
To my classes all the time.
Do you think that's happening less with people trying to wear both hats? Or are you still seeing?
I think it's an inclination for more and more people to pursue that.
because there's less loan officers, so they think that means there's room for them.
Yeah.
I know of many people that have jumped out of the mortgage and went and got their realtor license as well to try to do that. Neither one of them are being successful at either piece because they're divided. How much they spend time doing one to how much they spend time doing the other. It's very, I'm going to say, just from my aspect, it's very rare that they're successful because you've got to be able to have a lifeline of one going very well before you jump into that market, in my opinion. But to answer, going back, help explain to the hubby why sellers prefer 20% rather than 5%. Have we explained that very well? Because I still don't see a difference. I see the bottom line, how much they're getting paid, and whether somebody's paying 5 or 20% should not matter to me as the seller.
It's the psychological piece, I think, Blair, that really comes into play. Jeff's first comment, maybe we can revisit that I know from being an investor, when I go out and buy a property, when I've looked at properties and I pick the one I want, I've decided I want to own this property. The numbers work and so on and so forth. So if I get the property at that price, then as an investor, I know psychologically that I'm putting down typically 20%. My earnest money check will follow accordingly with being a 10, 15, 20%, 25% amount, simply because I know that there's at least 12 different ways I can get my earnest money back in a contract if it's well written. Psychologically, though, I've had realtors, the listing realtor, come to me afterwards and say, well, yours wasn't the best offer, but because you were willing to go ahead and show us that you had this additional money, you got the bid over all the other offers that we had. And people also keep in mind, your real estate community is not very well educated on the fact that VA and FHA loans are really no more different than a conventional loan, as long as the property's in reasonable shape. Mm-hmm. And that's the misnomer or the misunderstanding that it's existed in our industry for 4,000 years. Back when I used to sell teepees and log cabins, the other realtors, if I brought in an FHA deal, no, I don't want to do that. The government stepping in, making all these. Well, it's not the government, it's the investor complying with FHA guidance to make sure that the house health and safety issues have been addressed. And if you're living in some place that is in good shape, where the walls aren't, falling down and the toilets aren't leaking on the second floor, and you don't have bare carpet everywhere and broken windows, FHA is going to do the same thing they always do, which is, appraise the house just like a normal conventional. Many conventional appraisers are FHA appraisers as well, and vice versa.
Yeah.
So for people to understand, as far as that 3.5% down, it's the psychological piece that's getting people in a comfortable spot as a seller as to what they see on paper, because they never meet the person.
So it's really an informed decision. I mean, because if we look at it, listing agents put cash is king, of course, in any case, conventional, FHA, then VA. And the only reason why VA is looked negatively is because the appraisal process, not because the veteran's not deserving of 100% financing of the home. So again, you take care of your home is in good shape. Any one of these solutions is viable to selling your home.
Yeah.
But this realtor is leaning toward what they say in the seller world. I understand you're saying it's a mental thing. It's a mental understanding, but it's also limited because you could be getting rid of good offers just for the fact that it's not 20% down, but it's 5% because they want to take the rest of the money to invest.
Quick question. Would you guys not agree with that is why buyers began to write personal letters to sellers? Remember when they were competing over offers and say, hey, this is my family, my child's going to that school where your kids went, whatever they said, but they were trying to make a connection so that it made people realize, hey, we're legit. And I may be offering 5%, but I want you to know we're good to go.
Well, yeah, it could be a 5% down payment program that they're approved on, but it could be an earnest check of about double or triple what everyone else. It could be the same thing. And again, the intent, you have to look at each one individually. So I think I think the husband's got the right idea. If it's really want the home, then go with a higher earnest, not 20% down. That could be a difference. But
last question, Tom, when you sold teepees, what kind of sign did you put in the yard?
It was buffalo skin. I remember it as buffalo skin.
Okay.
Okay, next question. Want to terminate with realtor, but he wants me to sign an exclusive selling agreement or pay for the professional pictures he had done. I tried to sell my house 3 months ago. Didn't get a single showing in a month because my realtor overpriced it. He did convince me, so it's not entirely his fault. Afterwards, I decided instead to put it in for a long-term rent, and my realtor said he can find me a tenant, and his fee is 1 month's rent. It's now been 2 months. I've only received one application, and they had terrible credit. My home is situated in a popular vacation spot in Florida and is priced fairly. There's nothing wrong with it, and it's new condition as of built in 2020. This leads me to believe not the property or price, it's the agent. I think the problem is my realtor not really trying or perhaps not advertising correctly. I told my agent I was looking for into property management company that specializes in finding tenants. I need my home rented ASAP. He said if I wanted to go with someone else, he'd like if I at least sign an 18-month seller agreement with him and at least reimburse him for the professional photos he took. The actual contract has no termination fee or stipulation to this, essentially. How should I approach this?
Wow, there are a lot of moving parts there. What was that last thing you just read?
The actual contract has no termination fees or stipulations, so this is essentially a courtesy he is asking of me. How should I approach this?
Well, the reality of being a commissioned salesperson at this point, unless it's written into a contract, I think the commissioned salesperson is learning a lesson here of about multiple different things. Selling the property in a timely fashion in a decent market, not establishing the correct value for the property, and then asking for reimbursement after the fact. All those things are not the normal way the industry works. And so the reality is that I would go back to the realtor if I'm the seller and say, look, this is just a learning curve for you as far as that goes, but I'm headed in a different direction, which he can do on the agreement. And if he gets any pushback, I mean, you've always got the fallback to go to the person's broker to make the case if there's a pushback situation. But everything he stated as far as inactivity is concerned, I think does sound like it's lying on the shoulders of the realtor, or at least the realtor's advice as far as not being strong enough, because maybe the house is built in 2020, 5 years, 4 years old, looks pretty good. But the guy is what am I looking for? He's a hoarder. And you walk in the house, and the first thing that you see is hoarding, or you see something structurally incorrect with the house. One of my neighbor's houses, you walk in the front door, and the front 200 square feet of the house is entryway. I mean, that was living space that it was used as an entryway to make the house seem grander. But for the size of the house, that it's wasted space. And if I was buying a house, I wouldn't be paying for that extra 200 square feet I've been quoted in the price of the house, simply because it's just a atrocious layout. So those are conversations you have to have, as uncomfortable as they are, with sellers, so that they understand you're doing your job, you're analyzing the feedback that's coming to you from showings that are happening. If you aren't having showings, then you should do some additional things like having open houses on the weekend. I mean, there's multiple ways to twist and turn as a realtor, but this sounds like this person that listed the house is brand new in the business.
And again, like you say, it's a learning curve. But what is this? If I would sign an 18-month seller agreement, is that in the industry? I've never heard of that.
Say it one more time.
I've heard of it, but
if I want to go with someone else, he'd like if I would at least sign an 18-month seller agreement with him, or reimburse him for the professional photos.
No way.
18-month seller agreement. I mean, that's just, I've never heard of that.
Well, I've heard of it. I've never heard of it happening in our world. And especially in today's market, if you can't turn to somebody and say, you can sell this thing, I'll give you a shot at it for 3 months, blah, 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 blah. I mean, 90 days as far as marketing time on an appraisal, if you go over 90 days, is considered excessive as far as that goes.
Hey, I want to tell you a specific story since you're saying that. Those extended agreements do exist. And I do not know about this situation, but many times they are not sold correctly. And I'll tell you why. We closed a deal on a single mother selling her house, moving, and she was buying another house. She was getting moving to a nicer area. She had signed one of those, didn't realize the guy had put it for 24 months. She could not get out of it. Had to pay the guy like $5 or $6 grand at closing. He had no right to that money, just because he had gotten her sign one of those and she forgot about it. Wow. So you need to be very careful with those.
That's the kind of agreement you take to truck though and file a complaint.
And they did, but at the point she's got to buy her new place, she had to get along with him.
Right.
But here you are, a single mom, somebody ripped her off of almost $6 grand. I mean, it's ridiculous. But in that case, why would he even ask that? That proves you didn't get one showing on this property for your client, and you want to ask them to give you an 18-month extension.
Yeah, let's do this again.
Yeah, good luck. Let me show you I'm really good.
Okay, yeah. So run fast from this deal. Don't sign anything, and let him or her have an education.
Maybe pay for the pictures to make him feel good and kick him on down the road.
Yeah. Well, okay. Next question. Is it normal for banks to go through your entire transaction history on your checking account when you're applying for a mortgage loan? The person doing the loan just asked me why I sent a couple of $100 to a family member. Yes, we do look at things like bank statements and transaction history. Now, a couple of $100, depending on the amount, it dismisses. We only look for things that are equal to your pay or higher. We don't look at things in the $100, $200 range if you're making $4,000 a month. So yes, we're going to look at all of the transaction history, but the questions we should ask should apply to large amounts, large deposits, that sort of thing, where they're coming from. If they're not if they're large deposits or transfers from a bank, another account we don't know about, all of that sort of thing. I just did a royalties deal that the person's income is based on royalties. Well, they really didn't like it that we were asking all the questions on the royalties organization.
Well, that's a good time to freeze.
Kind of get a good little freeze of him. And it's such a pretty mouth open situation.
Are y'all making fun of me again?
No.
Only when you freeze up, my friend.
But as I said, we were doing a royalties deal that basically 10 royalties, but we only really needed 8 for the income. Yes, we had to ask some tough questions, especially where the royalties and the lease agreements were for those royalties. So we're going to dive deep into your income and your financial assets and liabilities. But we have to understand that, just like we saw an IRS check being made out. Well, we wanted to know, are they on a payment plan? What's going on with this? Why would that happen? Or is it just one time? And that's how much taxes they paid. We're going to ask key questions that relate to your long-term ability to pay back. As Tom loves to put it, hey, those TPs were expensive, and risk is all about how much can you pay it back? Can you afford this?
And Blair, educate me. Does it make sense that if
Mention one additional thing,
it may have
from
just been a couple $100 sent to the family, but if you're sending cousin Jeff $200 every month, that's on your.
Yeah. Is there a handshake agreement? Is there a contract outside the credit? Do you have another loan? All of that sort of thing goes into questioning. Hey, there's another liability we need to put down here that's not on your credit report. And so recognizing those things in a simple LOE, letter of explanation, can take most of this taken care of very easily. Hey, I make a donation to an organization named this, and I donate. I don't have to. I do it by, and we looked at a 12-month bank statement. We see things consistently. So yeah, we'll ask questions, but we're going to want to know about that because it comes back to risk. Risk and fraud are our major jobs, keeping fraud out of the industry and managing risk. What is the best risk here for? What's the best program for you? And so, yes, it is normal for banks or anyone that is a creditor that's going to lend you a large amount of money to know about your financial situation. Tom, would you like to add anything to that?
No, I think you actually brought up the exact thing I was going to talk about, which is if I see a pattern of $100 or $200 or $300 a month going somewhere, and it's an EFT, it's an automatic withdrawal, is there an associated note tied to that? Is that associated note to your uncle? And does that associated note have a balloon in it? And I mean, we have to know financially how this person is spending their money, because that is the indicator of how they're going to spend money on a house once they own it. So very, very legitimate why we get outside the box to do this kind of analysis for every borrower that's out there. You're not exempt nowadays. We've got to establish, and this terminology's been here since 2010, your ability to repay.
Ability to repay. Well, guys, I am really enjoying this. Your turn to ask. We want to stress to our listeners, please send your questions to welcomehomeradio.net. Sign on there. Let us be aware of your questions. Let us know what you were thinking about or would like to talk or understand further. Our industry is going to be exploding this year. I'm going to say it's going to change. It's going to grow. We have a lot of opportunity coming. But again, there's never a bad time to buy. It's how you look at the program and what you're looking as an ROI on the investment, because equity relates to your net worth. And if an opportunity is there for you, it will help you grow. And Tom is a true investor in the business. He knows about it. We can talk about investment properties, rental properties, Airbnbs. I'm sure we'll get a lot of questions on as well. Guys, any final things?
No, thank you guys. I'm enjoying this format as well.
And remember, people, at the end of the month on January 31st, your taxes all become due and payable on your houses. So make sure your taxes are paid by January 31st, which of course coincides with a major other event, not the Super Bowl, my birthday, of course.
Well, then, thanks for
Yes,
giving us
old
time
man
to prepare.
Hey, we want to help you get to clear to close. We want you to be able to do that. And we got an old man to know all the ins and outs about it. So ask us your questions. God bless and have a great rest of your year.
Welcome Home Radio production provided by Lunatic Digital. Check the listing of this podcast for the links to our sponsors. And don't forget to like, share, and follow us on social media. Visit welcomehomeradio.net for more information. This was a Lunatic Digital production. Visit lunaticdigital.com for all your digital needs.